Next on ABC7's Good Morning El Paso weekend, as a city and a nation mourn the events of the past week, new threats and responses emerge surrounding certain ceremonies. And around the borderland, elected officials and viewers are reacting to comments made by one of El Paso's top law enforcement officials. And more local reaction to the shocking events of the past week as people in the area gather to reflect and remember. And the storm track weather, Stephen.
Triple-digit heat continues. We're in for a very hot week of all the details coming up.
This is all the news you need to start your Sunday, July 10. ABC7's Good Morning El Paso weekend starts right now.
Live, where news comes first. From the Mesilla Valley and Las Cruces to El Paso and the borderland. This is ABC7's Good Morning El Paso weekend.
I'm tired of it. I'm tired of waking up and seeing another black man die at the hands of the police.
Thousands of supporters of the Black Lives Matter movement took to the streets last night. The protest follows the death of 2 African-American men this week at the hands of police officers. And this morning, at least 120 people were arrested in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, along with another 50 people arrested in Minnesota. Well, good morning, El Paso, and thank you for joining us. I'm Andrew J. Polk. We'll get to the latest on the protests in just a moment, but first, let's get to our storm track weather. We are under that ABC7 first alert because it is hot. The first forecaster, storm track meteorologist Stephen Decatur. Good morning, Stephen.
Good morning, Andrew. It is hot, and it's going to be an uncomfortable day. Starting off warm already in the borderland, 81 degrees in El Paso, 80 in Las Cruces, 84 in Alamogordo, and we're only going to go up from there. Plenty of sunshine around. You can see those little icons. Look out the window, blue skies. Temperatures in the lower valley, Valley View 82, Clint 79 degrees, 81 in Montwood, Loma Terra sitting at 79, so we're already heating up, and it's going to be a hot afternoon. Temperatures above 100 degrees once again, and we have that first alert in effect for the prolonged heat that we've been dealing with. This is going to be day 8 in a row of triple-digit heat. So again, with that in mind, your body can get stressed by all this heat. Heat stroke, heat exhaustion, heat cramps, heat rash, all those are a possibility. Heat is the #1 weather-related killer in the United States every year. So again, it's no joke. Heat matters, and it's going to be a very hot day in the borderland. Temperatures, again, above 100 degrees, and I'll get to those in a little bit. Andrew?
All right, thanks, Stephen. Check back with you here in just a bit. In the meantime, though, just days after the Dallas ambush, local leaders in El Paso held a news conference to share condolences to the victims killed. It was led by a prayer by Chaplain Carlos Flores, and then Sheriff Richard Wiles, County Judge Veronica Escobar, and State Rep Joe Moody. They all took the stand to share a few words in support of the victims. El Paso Chief of Police Greg Allen did not speak at the podium, but was also there. It's now the comments he shared after the conference that has created a firestorm between local leaders. He spoke specifically about the protests going on for the Black Lives Matter movement.
What do you have to say to people who will be protesting out there on Sunday? Black Lives Matters people. What do you have to say to them?
Black Lives Matter, as far as I'm concerned, is a radical hate group. And for that purpose alone, I think the leadership of this country needs to look a little bit harder at that particular group. The consequences of what we saw in Dallas is due to their efforts.
Chief Allen's words has many people on opposite sides of this issue, but it did not sit well for sure with Congressman Beto O'Rourke, who tweeted, quote, "EP Police Chief has lost our confidence by blaming Dallas PD murders on Black Lives Matter." Now, El Paso leaders are calling on Mayor Oscar Leeser and City Council to take a stand against Allen's views and hold him accountable. They've penned a letter saying that they were, quote, deeply concerned and disappointed by Chief Allen's statement, saying in part, quote, "What Chief Allen's statement conveys about his attitude towards members of a community that he is sworn to protect raises serious questions about his leadership. It is also a betrayal of the values generations of El Pasoans have stood for." The letter goes on to say, "The Black Lives Matter movement is about the same values of dignity, equality, and peaceful protest. It was not responsible for the tragedy in Dallas." Chief Allen's statement places El Paso's seal of approval on a sentiment that stands in stark contrast to those values and one that promotes hate itself. The letter was signed by Senator Jose Rodriguez, County Judge Veronica Escobar, State Rep Mary Gonzalez, among several others. And like we said earlier, many people have split opinions to Chief Allen's statements, including our viewers. A lot of viewers are saying they support Chief Allen, but there are still plenty of others who disagree with what he said. Terry says, quote, "The chief needs to do his research on Black Lives Matter. The only difference between now and back in the day is cell phone cameras, dash cams, and people on the streets seeing what's going on. Pamela writes in part, when wearing that badge and in uniform and as a leader, you have no right to publicly express your false, uninvestigated opinion. But viewers who say they support Chief Allen, like Nancy, write, it takes courage to say what our chief of police said. I am not one to sugarcoat anything, and I appreciate someone that is firm and stands by his words and is not afraid to speak his mind. And lastly, from Mario, who said, I stand behind Chief Allen. I encourage him to continue to stand behind his beliefs. Shame on those who are trying to cause division in the ranks. And of course, we are inviting you to comment as well. To join the discussion now, just go to the KVIA ABC7 Facebook page. And in St. Paul, protesters are staging a lie-in to commemorate the lives lost this past week. They also gathered to block part of I-94. The protest starting with a march from the governor's mansion. Law enforcement there is now forming their own line across the interstate in response to protesters, eventually using smoke bombs to try to clear the air. ABC's Ava Pilgrim is in St. Paul with the latest.
Overnight, protesters and police clashing. In Baton Rouge, footage shows one man being tased. About 30 arrested, including civil rights activist DeRay McKesson, a well-known member of the Black Lives Matter movement, streaming on Periscope as he was taken into custody.
City police, you're under arrest. Don't fight me. Don't fight me. Don't fight me.
I'm under arrest, y'all. And he was snatched and grabbed and put in an armored vehicle.
And in St. Paul, protesters lying on the streets and shutting down highways. Police there overnight using smoke bombs to clear out demonstrators who they say threw rocks and fireworks at them. Meanwhile, in San Antonio, police investigating reported gunfire hitting their headquarters.
We got 3 over here.
The protests all spurred by those fatal shootings of 2 black men by police in 24 hours. On Tuesday night, that close-up killing caught on camera. Alton Sterling losing his life. On Wednesday,
Get his hand out.
Philando Castile shot in the driver's seat of his car in Minnesota after 2 cops pulled him over. His fiancee live streaming the aftermath on Facebook.
And the officer just shot him in his arm.
This morning, the attorney for the officer at the center of the Minnesota shooting saying this heartbreaking incident had nothing to do with race. It had to do with the presence of a gun.
He's licensed to carry. He was trying to get out his ID and his wallet out his pocket.
And that was ABC's Ava Pilgrim reporting. And last night, dozens of Las Crucens gathered at Albert Johnson Park to participate in a Black Lives Matter vigil. They also honored the 2 black men who were shot earlier in the week by police and honored the police officers who lost their lives in the Dallas shooting. Many were at a loss of words, and participants were also concerned with public unrest. The vigil started with words of peace and was followed by prayer. Many Las Crucens reflected near the statue of Albert Johnson, who was the first black mayor of Las Cruces. With the recent shooting in Dallas and some criticizing the Black Lives Matter protest, some residents are explaining why the group needs to push forward.
Sometimes we need to sit down with each other and really get to understand each other. And I think that's where the breakdown is coming from, when they don't understand why the injustices and the inequalities that are happening to the African American race, and it's being overlooked.
One woman we spoke with says, with all the media, you can't hide from our problems, especially with all the events that have been happening, and that we have to take care of each other. And happening today in honor of the recent shootings in Louisiana and Minnesota, UTEP's Black Student Union and PFLAG are hosting a candlelight vigil. This will be tonight at the San Jacinto Plaza from 8 to 10 p.m. And our complete coverage of the ambush in Dallas continues tonight. This week, ABC 7 Extra will be about the reaction to the attacks on Dallas police officers, plus the relationship between police and the communities they serve. Mosley Hobson from Black Roundtable will be our guest. His group promotes discussions of the social issues that affect African Americans. You don't want to miss this important discussions. Again, you can catch it all tonight at 10:35 right here on ABC 7 after ABC 7 at 10. And while Dallas continues to mourn, there's more fear and anxiety after another possible threat that has police once again on edge. Police confirm no suspects were found after a threat temporarily shut down a vigil for the police officers killed. Officers started searching the parking garage for what was described as a suspicious person. Police also denied earlier reports about gunshots in the area. They say the sound came from a SWAT team using explosives to break through a locked fence during that search. And if you missed any of our coverage, Ambush in Dallas, KVIA.com has everything you need to get caught up to speed, including the full statements made by local leaders and a slideshow that shows the moments the chaos broke out in Dallas, along with pictures honoring the 5 officers gunned down. Switching gears now, the Cincinnati Entertainment District used to be the center of El Paso's nightlife. But over the past few years, more and more bars have closed their doors, and the district has definitely gone through some rough times. But now the city is trying to work to change it for the better, and they want to know what you think should happen. They held a community meeting yesterday, and we were there to hear some of the suggestions.
Because it's the best way that the city can move forward in looking at planning and creating an attractive space for pedestrians and for businesses as well.
City Rep Peter Swarzbein and city staff are working with community members to develop ideas on what a redesign of the Cincinnati street area near Mesa and UTEP could look like.
First and foremost, increase the safety aspect of that intersection for folks traveling from the parking garage or UTEP onto the retail commercial area of Cincinnati Street.
The idea is to transform the Cincinnati area by starting with the street itself, making it not so much just focused on letting vehicles go by, but making it more accessible for pedestrians, bikes, and other uses. Also getting people to not just park on the street, but to start using the parking structure that's right nearby as well. Overall, making this a more friendly, inviting, and useful area.
And so what will happen after this, after we've gotten community input, and we've had several meetings over the past several months, is that we will then take this information and give it to the engineering firm that will scope out the project.
With things like wider sidewalks, more trees and benches, and more iconic signage for the area, business owners in the area say there is potential, and the city has already had $1.5 million allocated to make it happen.
Everything seems great to me, what they've talked about so far. They laid down 3 options for us as far as the closure goes, but then we also have taken into account the trolley coming through there. So that plays a big factor on us as well.
And with planning for the future in mind, groundbreaking on the new project is expected in about 4 to 5 months. There will be one final community meeting on the redesign planned for later this year in August. The exact details on that meeting are still having to be worked out and will be released later. And if you haven't stepped outside during the day lately, it's hot, the capital H. And coming up on Good Morning El Paso weekend, this wave of weather is also bringing some advisories you need to know about. And later, the unveiling of a new memorial brings together veterans and the community. It is 8:12 right now, taking a live look at traffic this morning. I-10 and executive, few vehicles out there, but otherwise you can see it's moving along just fine. No stoppages around here. I-10 near the former Sarco site, also moving along just fine. No major problems on El Paso roadways for the moment, and conditions are very clear, very hot. And in storm track weather, Stephen.
Temperatures are moving along as well. They're moving up, and it's going to be another hot day in the borderland. I'll have details after the break.
You're watching ABC 7, where news comes first.